What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Jungle Cup using the Galarian bird trio, as like the Kanto forms, they all got buffed this season. Well, nearly. Zapdos unfortunately did not receive any move changes, so I've subbed it out for Horlucha, which of course has the same typing, and got buffed with Low Kick. I could have also opted for Flamigo with Wing Attack, however, I wanted some fighting type fast move coverage for Piloswine, which is going to be one of the team's biggest threats. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What has been your favorite buff to a legendary or mythical Pokemon this season? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Horlucha into Piloswine. So this is exactly why we need the fighting type coverage of Low Kick on our Horlucha. I might actually call it Zapdos just because for the graphic I have called it Zapdos there. Either way, Flying Press is going to be shielded. Now I do expect the opponent probably going to try and make a catch on the second Flying Press, as of course it will be a CMP tie, and the opponent does exactly that. However, I couldn't really afford to not throw straight away, so the opponent swaps into Altaria, but I'm just about able to bank a charge move before swapping out into Moltres, and because I'm on Wing Attack here, the opponent maybe just didn't quite understand that we were already at the charge move, as of course it does generate energy a little bit faster than Sucker Punch. I'm not going to shield, and the opponent isn't going to commit to a full farm down. That is huge for me. Now I do know Piloswine has a charge move loaded, so I'm going to look to overfarm just slightly in this matchup and then fire off the Fly. Fly will be enough damage to take out Shadow Altaria. They're going to come in with a Shadow Talonflame, and all I need to do here is make sure the opponent does not make a catch. We can full send the Brave Bird. Brave Bird gets the one shot, and now I choose not to swap out there, as if I swap out, potentially they Powder Snow farm me down before I get off the charge route. Instead, in allowing Articuno to go down, as long as I don't get one turn bring-in lag, I'm able to take them out with the Flying Press, and so the opponent just concedes the match. GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Altaria in the lead. I say swap into Moltres, and the opponent's going to come in with a Dunsparce. Now actually, because we're on Wing Attack here, I can tank a Rock Slide, and I will be able to reach a Fly before they fully farm me down. However, this is going to set up quite a nasty farm down for the opponent if they choose to shield, and the opponent very likely is going to shield here. So the opponent commits to the farm down, they come out with another charge move loaded, and whilst Low Kick is super effective, it still doesn't hit particularly hard, so the opponent might actually reach back-to-back Rock Slides here before I do get a full farm down. So I'm going to no shield once again as they go for a second Rock Slide. We are getting very low. I did honestly anticipate the opponent might try and snipe me there with the Altaria, but no, they do allow the full farm down. Aerial Ace, not going to do much damage. However, it does hopefully put them into range where Brave Bird will KO later on in the battle, and I do definitely need just a single charge move to take out Altaria. As the opponent's going to come in with a Credilli, of course. Rock Tomb, not going to do as much damage this season, but I definitely still need to shield it. And of course, it is also going to debuff my attack stat. Fly is going to grab the final shield, but of course, they can now double debuff me, and I do anticipate the opponent very likely going to swap back into Altaria when they're able to do so. So I'm actually just going to clear the debuff. I wasn't trying to make a catch or anything, and I'm hoping Brave Bird gets the KO. Of course, all shields are down. It does take out the Altaria, and I was just one Psycho Cut away from the Fly. Fly takes out the Credilli, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there. I have to say, Articuno does feel a lot deadlier this season with Psycho Cuts just doing slightly more damage. It does actually put a lot of Pokemon into range where Brave Bird can just get the one-shot. Anyways, we're going to lead into Gyarados, so once again, not a great matchup for our Zapdos in the lead. The opponent's now going to come in with an Umbreon, but honestly, not that bad of a matchup for me, as I do have neutral coverage here with the Wing Attacks and the Flies. However, Umbreon is just super bulky. They can tank these charge moves like nothing. However, my switch clock is coming up, so I'm going to swap out, and I'm hoping I've just caught a resisted dark type charge move here, as the opponent had put Moltres into range where foul play would have taken me out. Now they could be on Psychic. I'm going to shield just in case they are. Unfortunately, it's just a double dark moveset for the Umbreon as they go for Dark Pulse, so I definitely could have tanked that quite comfortably. However, I'm going to grab a shield up against the Gyarados, and I'm actually going to shield here. I think Arc Tail might barely not KO, but it might put me into range where I don't reach an Aerial Ace. So I'm going to shield, go for Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace not shielded, it gets the KO, and they come in with a Bug Bite Fortress, which of course, being a fighting and flying type Pokemon, I'm double resisting. They can never go for a full farm down. And honestly, Sand Tomb isn't going to do much damage either. So at this point, I do swap out there just to clear the debuff. Potentially, Bug Bites start to do 2 damage, and it does get a little dicey. I come in with the Articuno, and again, they don't reach the Rock Tomb. They settle for a Sand Tomb. They swap into Umbreon, but they choose not to throw or use a shield there. Instead, they realize with a debuff to my defense, they can shield once and Bug Bite farm me down. But remember, Moltres is just one away from the fly. The opponent had to overfarm a bit there because I believe Hawlucha would have got to a charge move otherwise. But we reach the fly, we get the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle, and unfortunately, Hawlucha just cannot catch a break right now in the lead, and unfortunately, not the best swap for me either, as the opponent comes in with a Wigglytuff. But we do have a huge energy advantage. I can reach back-to-back flies, however, the opponent is just going to shield once, and then go for a full Charm farm down. Now, even worse, Zapdos, sorry, I keep calling it Zapdos because on the graphic I have, of course, named it Zapdos. Hawlucha is really going to struggle here, but it doesn't have play into Pelipper either, so I'm just going to tank the Icy Wind, maybe try and reach a charge move. We can see we're not going to live another charm, so I swap out, and unfortunately, the opponent can now go for another charge move, and they go for the Icy Wind, debuffing my attack stat. However, that does set up a huge farm down. But let's see what the opponent has in the back. They're going to come back in with the Pelipper. I'm going straight for Brave Bird. I am debuffed. Brave Bird is going to be shielded by the opponent. And so here, I'm also going to shield. They do have quite a lot of energy, so I'm going to swap out, catch the charge move here. And I need something incredibly weak to Articuno, or basically something that has no fast move pressure whatsoever. And unfortunately, Piloswine is not that Pokemon. I full send the Brave Bird. Brave Bird does big damage. But unfortunately, it's not enough to KO, and even if it did KO, they could just wing attack farm me down with Pelipper, and so I do lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see another Fortress in the lead, and again on Bug Bite. This time it is a Shadow version, but again they just go straight for Sand Tomb, which is such a strange play in my opinion. Either way, I'm going to go for Flying Press. Flying Press is going to be shielded, but I can already reach another one. So Flying Press number 2 is going to be no shielded. It gets the KO, but they come in with a Lantern. Now Lantern is definitely problematic for me. I can either come in with the Articuno, where both my charge moves are resisted, or I can come in with the Moltres, where both the wing attack and the fly is resisted. So at this point, I'm chipping as much as possible with the Hawlucha, and hopefully I've put them into range where fly will KO. Got a shield, and they full send a Thunderbolt. I can now look to overfarm just slightly. However, the opponent does make a really nice catch there, catching the fly onto Licky Licky. I'm now going to go for another fly here, and fly will put them into range where I can farm them down. Now, it just depends. Do I want to shield here, or should I just save the shield for the Moltres? I'm saving the shield. Body Slam doesn't KO, so we come in. We get a slight energy advantage with the Moltres. The opponent recognizing they don't have enough energy to take me out there, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Piloswine in the lead. So, once again, we are going to look to overfarm just a little bit here. Fire off the Flying Press. I will throw the next one as soon as I get there, however, as I can't really afford to allow the opponent to get both of my shields and then potentially just swap out of that matchup anyways. As you can see here, of course, Low Kick's dealing decent damage. Powder Snows are doing more damage, however, and unfortunately, the opponent is going to double shield and fully farm me down. Now, I don't think I can shield once and farm them down here, so I'm going to no-shield the first. I'm going to try and get off as much wing attack damage as possible. I swap into Articuno, but potentially I should have swapped out slightly sooner than that. Then I'm going to come in with a Shadow Murkrow, but Fly is going to do big damage. Fly gets the KO up against the Murkrow, but they're going to come in with a second Glass Cannon, and unfortunately, Articuno is pretty attack-weighted, but Salazzle has an even higher attack stat. Poison Fang gets the KO. I think if I swapped out just slightly sooner with the Moltres, got a little bit ahead with energy on the Articuno. Potentially Articuno could have swept that game, but GG's to that trainer. Very well played. Into next battle. Gonna see Lopunny in the lead. The opponent's gonna say swap into Mantine. I don't have the best response, and honestly, I don't really know why I came in with the Articuno, but I'm hoping that I can maybe grab a shield with a Fly bait here, and then full send a Brave Bird. I'm gonna go for the Fly. Fly is not respected, unfortunately, and it is not gonna put them into Psycho Cut farm down range, so I will fire off a second Fly, but the opponent is actually going to no shield. Then I'll come in with Greninja. I can go for another Fly here, and then I'm actually going to swap into my Moltres. I, of course, realize that Hawlucha is going to have a lot of play into both Greninja and the Lopunny, so I'm just going to swap out there. I don't want to give them too much farm up against the Articuno, and potentially put myself at a disadvantage. So the opponent comes back in with the Lopunny. Payback does big damage there. The opponent is looking to overfarm. I believe they're at back-to-back Fire Punches already. The opponent going to go for Fire Punch, getting the KO there. there. And at this point, we're going to come in with the Articuno. I'm just going to sacrifice this thing, and then, of course, leave my shield for the Hawlucha. However, Greninja does have a lot of energy, and actually, I didn't realize Hawlucha doesn't have as much energy as I remembered, so this might get dicey, especially since they bait with a Night Slash. Can Hawlucha hang on here? It's going to be close, but we live with 1 HP. We get the farm down, and we also farm down Lopunny as they're on double kick rather than low kick, which means low kick, of course, 2-turn fast move. It outpaces them just barely, and I'm able to take that game. But GG swap on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Greedent in the lead. I'm going to swap into my Articuno. Once again, not the best response to a Pelipper. However, Fly probably will put them into range where I can farm them down this time. Whereas, of course, up against the Mantine, which is a lot bulkier, it wasn't able to do that. However, they're going to shield, and they're likely going to double shield to flip switch advantage. It doesn't really matter too much because Moltres is also going to have a great time into the Greedent. However, I'm going to shield once at least, go for Fly, and then swap into my Moltres. The opponent now comes in with a Licky. This is fine with me, just going to be a body slam, not going to deal too much damage here. However, of course, with the rollout damage, they will eventually put me into range where a second body slam will KO. But we're going to full send Payback. Payback does big damage. The opponent gonna overfarm, allow me to reach a second Fly here. And Fly from this range will be taking out the Licky. They come back in with the Greedent. I swap out, I catch the charge move. Honestly, I don't know why I didn't just swap and catch it onto Articuno there, but body slam does honestly quite a lot of damage. Maybe a little bit too much damage, really. As now, I'm going to shield. I know they've got energy, so I throw on CMP, winning CMP with the Hawlucha. However, it didn't allow me to overfarm enough, and the opponent gonna outpace me and reach another body slam. This is quite dangerous for me because they are so spammy. I'm gonna need Moltres to get the KO with a Payback. Of course, I'm not running Brave Bird. Payback still a very good charge move here, but can this take out the bulky Greedent? Payback doesn't get the KO there, and again, I don't swap out and make a catch. And while Psycho Cut's damage did get boosted this season, 2 Psycho Cuts barely don't do enough. They live with 1 HP and a dream. Perfectly played by the opponent there. Honestly, I felt like I had that game in the bag up against the Greedent, but GG's to that trainer. Very well played. Into the next battle, we're going to see Corviknight in the lead. So this actually isn't that bad of a matchup for me. Yes, of course, Air Cutter is going to hit for super effective, but I am double resisting the Sand Attack damage. And you're going to see Flying Press is going to do quite a lot of damage in this matchup. So we're going to go for 1 here. Flying Press actually going to be shielded by the opponent. So now I come in with the Moltres. Now, of course, they can go for Payback, but that is resisted, so they will just spam out Air Cutters. Unfortunately, they get another attack boost there. That's 2 in a row. They go for another Air Cutter. 3 attack boosts in a row. That is not ideal for me. However, they're still not doing any fast move pressure at all with the Sand Attacks, but they do reach yet another charge move. I'm hoping I put them into range where I can actually come in and Psycho Cut farm them down here, and actually, I get quite a substantial farm down. We come out 1 away from a Fly already, and let's see. They're going to come in with a Scrafty. Honestly, I should probably Brave Bird. I don't expect them to shield this, and of course, Psycho Cuts don't have much fast move pressure into a Dark-type Pokemon, but honestly, I can shield. I can now look to overfarm massively in this matchup, and so the opponent actually swaps into Shadow Talonflame. Now here, on throwing on good timing, I actually overfarm well past 100, but we grab the final shield. We can now go for Brave Bird, and of course, Brave Bird easily takes out Shadow Talonflame. We can swap into Hawlucha, go for the low kick farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up there into the next battle. We're going to see a Gourgeist in the lead. Bit of a tricky matchup for me. I'm going to be swapping out into my hard answer in Moltres, just because if I swap into Articuno, of course, Shadow Ball is a huge threat there. So we go for Payback. Payback going to deal decent damage. However, they will just barely outpace me to back-to-back Body Slams. We've seen already, Body Slam is going to put me into range with the rollout damage, where a second Body Slam will KO. And this time they do throw straight away, meaning, unfortunately, we lose switch advantage, but it does set up quite a nice farm down for the Hawlucha. Unfortunately, they do reach a last second Shadow Ball, which does quite a lot of damage. However, we've got a lot of energy. We can go for 2 low kicks, throwing on good timing up against an Incinerate user. Aerial Ace is going to grab a shield, but we can reach another Aerial Ace already. Aerial Ace number 2, gotta be no shielded, but that puts them into range where I can Psycho Cut farm them down. Now, even if they do bait here with a Seed Bomb, they need 1 more Incinerate, and I'm able to get the perfect farm down there, but they're going to come in with a Sucker Punch for it, and that is not ideal for me. I'm likely gonna have to bait here with a fly. The opponent goes for brick break, so I definitely cannot full send the Brave Bird. I'll be 4 stages debuffed. So we bait and we grab the shield there. Honestly, wasn't sure if I would live one more fast move, but Brave Bird gets the job done. It takes out the turret, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. Nightmare lead for Hawlucha and just the entire team here. Honestly, I don't really know what to do. I'm going to swap into Moltres. And this is the bulkiest Pokemon on the team, so I'm actually going to no-shield this. They go for X-Scissor, which might imply they are not actually running Discharge at all, and maybe they've got Crunch for coverage instead. Either way, we grab a shield there. Honestly, would much prefer if they just no-shielded, as of course, that should put them into range, or I could Psycho Cut farm them down. But anyways, we come in with the Articuno. They are on Crunch there, and Crunch is not going to drop my defense. However, I overfarm way too much here, and as a result, I allow them to reach another X-Scissor before they just completely swap out of that matchup. Now here I'm going to go for an intricate undercharge with the Brave Bird, but I undercharged slightly too much. Honestly, I probably should have fully charged that and I would have come out very close to KOing, and maybe just one low kick from the Hawlucha would have got the farm down, but it doesn't really matter. They're going to have a Oranguru in the back. We can go for Flying Press. That does decent damage there, but they're going to reach a Brutal Swing. So at this point, I'm kind of clutching at straws here. We go for Fly. Of course, they're just going to shield that up there. Brutal Swing, of course, super effective. It takes out the Articuno, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Swampert in the lead this time around, so a pretty comfortable lead matchup for me. The opponent is going to go straight for the Hydro Cannon. Now, they will actually outpace me to back-to-back charge moves here. However, they swap into Dunsparce, and that is absolutely fine with me. I'm going for Flying Press. Flying Press does huge damage. Unfortunately, doesn't quite KO. And I didn't really want to waste a shield from that range, so I actually swap into Moltres, where Rock Slide is super effective, so maybe a questionable decision there. Maybe I could have just shielded, but either way, they're going to come in with a Talonflame. I'm going straight for Fly, and the opponent actually doesn't shield that. You see, without Sucker Punch, we're not really dealing that much fast move pressure either. However, they barely cannot farm me down. We live with a couple of HP, so the opponent is forced to use a shield. And honestly, you can see those Psycho Cuts are adding up there. I'm full sending a Brave Bird, as of course, Mud Shots not doing much damage. Brave Bird is no shielded. I swap out, I make a catch. This is completely unnecessary. This doesn't make a difference there. Flame Charge boosts up their attack stat, but you can see we can just Psycho Cut farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Pelipper in the lead once again. So, once again, not ideal for me. And again, going to be met with a Wigglytuff. So, I don't know if someone made a video on this core, but obviously not ideal for the team that I'm using right now. The opponent is, however, still going to allow me to reach another Fly, as again, they commit to a full Charm farm down. So Fly, number 2, going to be shielded. We do get them very low here, but again, I think I'm just going to have to fully sacrifice the Hawlucha. Going to tank the Icy Wind, and then swap into my Articuno, hoping this time they won't reach another Icy Wind. This time it's just going to be a Swift, so that is big. They are not going to debuff my attack stat. However, whilst they don't have a Piloswine, it's still just as bad as they come in with a Guzzlord. Super spammy. They go for Brutal Swing straight away. I need a Brave Bird to KO, but unfortunately, Psycho Cuts, they're just not adding up. Brave Bird does huge damage, but because we've got a double resisted fast move, they hang on. Brutal Swing gets the KO. We do get the farm down here, but unfortunately, it's not going to help. They can Charm, farm me down, and again, we end up losing that game. But GG's opponent there into the final battle of this video, leading into Dunsparce. The opponent's going to be swapping into Togekiss. Now, this could be a very good matchup for the Articuno if the opponent is on Aura Sphere and Psyshock, as both charge moves are already single resisted, or potentially if they Aura Sphere, that is going to be double resisted. Now, they go for Aura Sphere, which is kind of strange because that is going to do less damage, and they throw it straight away once again. So at this point, I'm just going to shield once. I'm actually going to go for a Brave Bird immediately, as I realize they're going to farm me down anyways, so I might as well debuff my defense there, make sure they don't get a huge farm. The opponent does still come out with a decent amount of energy, and they might reach back-to-back Rock Slides once again. However, I don't really care. Just gonna no-shield this. The opponent then swaps out, but they swap into Scrafty, and this should be a pretty routine win for me now, as we go for Flying Press. Flying Press grabs the first shield. Flying Press should be grabbing the final shield as well, and now we can come in with Moltres. Even if they have Thunder Punch, it's not going to do enough damage here, so I'm going to no-shield it. It is super effective, but we can go straight for Fly. Fly, of course, super effective damage. It takes out the Scrafty. They come back in with the Dunsparce, but they don't bother throwing. I'm able to farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.